I think that there is a bit of a time lag here from what I see on my screen over here and what's actually being broadcast here. There we go. There's me waving. I think that there is a bit of a time lag here from what I see on my screen over here and what's actually being broadcast here. There we go. There's me waving. I think that there is a bit of a time lag here from what I see on my screen over here and what's actually being broadcast. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and mute my computer so that you don't hear that double talking when it comes back on my computer and goes through the mic. So there's a little bit, it looks like there's about a 10-second time lag here. I'm going to go ahead and get started. First of all, thank you for coming today. I am really grateful you're here. I hope that you find a lot of helpful information. Feel free to ask any questions down below where the chat box is. I won't be able to monitor those real well while I'm actually teaching the class since I'm the only one here, but I will get to them all at the end of the class and make sure that I answer all of your questions. If for any reason you end up having to leave, type your question in and leave your email address and I will email you back an answer. All right, now I know that since many of you in the class today already know me a bit. You maybe follow me online, you get my emails, or you follow me on Facebook, but you may not know my story. And I'm sure there are some people on the call today who haven't met me or don't know me. So I would like to get started today just by introducing myself a little bit, telling you a little bit about my background and how I came to be where I'm at today as far as emergency preparedness is concerned. So I'm going to go ahead and start some slides now, and then we'll get moving. All right. So I grew up being taught by my parents and by my church that food storage was important. We drank powdered milk and we had buckets of wheat in the basement. And my mom even gave me a 3-month food storage supply as a wedding gift. But to be honest, I didn't really believe in food storage as a young adult. I felt no real urgency to have a solid food storage or to learn how to use the little food storage that I did have. But I don't think my slides are showing for you. Give me just 1 minute here. Sorry for the hiccup. Stop screen sharing. Let's try that again. All right, I think they're showing now. Yay. Sorry for that. Okay. So, like I said, I grew up with food storage, but didn't really believe in it. And then even when I initially got pregnant with twin boys in 2007, I didn't really think much about food storage. I was a lot more worried about normal mom things like diapers and car seats and boppy pillows. But just a few weeks before the twins were born, my husband and I moved from Utah to California so that he could attend law school. And we left behind family and friends, and both of us had good paying jobs that we left behind. We found a little apartment and settled in, but I was very unsettled internally. I wasn't sure we'd be able to care for ourselves and our growing family if life threw us some sort of curveball. So every day I sat in our small apartment in a large city with these 2 gorgeous babies and no local support system and no income. My husband was gone 16 plus hours a day at law school, and I realized that we needed to be better prepared. I started Googling emergency preparedness, and I found a lot of information. Quite a bit of it was helpful, but honestly, much of it was fear-filled, and a lot of it was somewhat a hodgepodge of disconnected and sometimes conflicting advice.
There was no step-by-step system telling me what I should do first, next, or last, and much of the information was over my head and didn't apply specifically to my family or our needs. I was afraid of all the different scenarios I was reading about online, but I honestly felt helpless because I couldn't really figure out how to get prepared for those things. Studying up on emergency preparedness like this was just squashing my optimism and making it really difficult for me to enjoy my everyday life. I wanted more simple, down-to-earth information that fit me, just a normal mom wanting to do her best to be ready to care for her kids. And I wasn't not being able to find that type of information made me feel really panicky and vulnerable. So eventually I did what I often do when I feel helpless, and I turned to God in prayer. He helped me realize two things. First, He wants me to enjoy my life, my kids, my husband, the beach, the mountains, the rain. Life really is to be enjoyed. And second, He loves me similarly, though more perfectly, to how I love my own children. He expects my best, but He's not going to save me from every tough situation. But in those tough situations, He is going to help me learn from them and develop character in those difficult times. And after realizing these two things, I was able to let go of my fear and my obsession. All I needed to do was do my best. And honestly, my best wasn't all that much with no income at that time. But even if the bad things I feared happened, I realized God could make them more meaningful in some way. He would use them to school me and my children in some way. Now, this doesn't mean that it let me off the hook when it came to working on emergency preparedness. Just like I expect my children to work hard and do their best because it's good for them to not always rely on me, God expects the same from me. And my best wasn't much at first, but I did what I could. So doing this allowed me to let go of my fear and that terrible doomsday type pessimism and start enjoying my everyday life again. I started spending reasonable amounts of time experimenting with different methods or suggestions or ideas I'd find online. I'd research and then I'd practice and experiment. And over time, I was able to decide what worked best for our family. And I started sharing what I was learning with others like you on my website or blog. And as that website grew, it also brought the opportunity to test many different preparedness products and food storage brands for free, which allowed me to fairly compare them without investing in each one individually. I also found that there were many other people who were looking for simplicity, many others who wanted to get better prepared, but didn't want to be obsessed with it or have it overtake their lives. There were many others who felt panicky and overwhelmed and stuck. And happily, since 2009, I have been blessed to help thousands of these people become better prepared while enjoying their everyday lives. Now, I'm not an over-the-top doomsday prepper. I don't have a bunker anywhere. Food storage and emergency preparedness are important to me, but they're not any more important than dancing or cuddling with my kids. God and my family are my priorities, and I prepare because I believe God wants me to, and because I love my family and want to take care of them. So if you feel like I did 9 years ago, then the information in today's class is for you. Or if you want to build a food storage but feel like your head spins when you try to sit down and actually plan it all out, then this class is for you today. If one of your 2017 New Year's resolutions is to work on food storage, but searching on Google or Pinterest leaves you feeling really confused, then this class is for you. Or if you want to be able to confidently care for your family anytime things don't go as planned but you aren't sure where to start, then this class is for you. So my goal today is to help you decide which method you'll use to calculate out a food storage for your family, and then to give you the tools to make planning and calculating that food storage simple and easy. So we'll cover 4 different methods of building or calculating a food storage for your family. The 4 methods are the Just Add Water meals, basic calorie method, the calorie plus method, and the recipe method. Now, there are pros and cons to each method, and we'll discuss those so that you can decide which one is best for your family right now. And that's going to be different for every person. There's no one-size-fits-all solution when it comes to food storage. I'll also show you how to calculate what your family's needs are based on the method that you choose, so you don't waste hours of time trying to figure that out on your own. That can be a really hard part of food storage. And last, I'll teach you how to make the method that you choose work well for you so you don't waste money on food storage that you aren't going to use. But make sure you stay till the end, because at the end of the class, I'll be giving everyone access to a printable summary sheet so you can remember what you learned, as well as food storage conversion charts. In addition, you'll each get 3 different food storage calculators for free. And these calculators typically cost $10 each or $30 total, but I'll be giving them away for free at the end of the presentation so that you can use those to calculate your food storage. Plus, you'll have an opportunity to ask any questions you might have about food storage at the end. And you can type those questions as we go down below in the chat. I just can't monitor them as I'm actually giving the presentation because my screen is full of the presentation and not the chat. Now, I will cover as much as I can today, but I'm not going to be able to give you everything I've learned in the last 10 years in just 1 hour. So I will give you an opportunity to learn more and continue to work with me at the end of today's class if you'd like to do that. All right, let's jump in. Giving thought to the method you will choose to calculate your family's food storage is important. Over the last 10 years, I've seen many people begin stocking food without planning anything out first, and honestly, it just isn't smart. I mean, yes, storing any food is better than storing no food. But starting without a plan creates inefficiency, which results in wasted time and wasted money. And honestly, I don't want you to waste either one. So as I walk you through your choices today, give some serious thought to what will work best for your family. That might be different from what works best for my family, and that's okay. So one choice for building your food storage is to use pre-made Just Add Water meals. Now, these are pouches of food that have a number of different ingredients in them to make a meal. One example would be hot cereal that includes oats, freeze-dried food, nuts, and a bit of sugar. Another might have noodles, tomato powder, mushroom seasoning, and freeze-dried sausage to create spaghetti. And in order to eat them, you simply add water, heat them up, and you're good to go. Now, at first glance, Just Add Water meals are very appealing to many people for 2 main reasons. First, they make planning what you need to store very easy. You simply buy a bucket full of the number of meals you want, and you're done. No fancy calculators needed. The second, they're very easy to use. There's no need to learn to cook with your food storage when all you have to do is add water. In addition, there's one other reason I personally store a few of these. In a disaster situation, I may not be able to find 8 different ingredients, pots and pans, and dishes right away. For this reason, I keep a few Just Add Water meals upstairs in my regular pantry and in my car. The convenience of them would be very valuable for the first few days following a disaster. However, I've found that many people don't know about some of the downsides to Just Add Water meals. So here are 5 to consider. First, they honestly don't taste great. Every brand I've tried. Some of them are better than others, but since the ingredients are all in one bag, everything has to be cooked for the same amount of time. This means that you're gonna either have to choose between soggy noodles or crunchy beans and meat. Second, they're difficult to rotate. Because of the not so great taste, it's likely that your family won't want to eat them instead of your regular dinner that you would make with fresh ingredients. So they often just sit on the shelf and aren't used unless you're forced to use them. And if you're never forced to use them, you'll end up tossing out thousands of dollars of food. Third, they are not very nutritious. In order to maintain a long shelf life, Just Add Water meals typically include various additives and preservatives, things like salt, MSG, sugar. So eating these for a few days isn't going to permanently damage your health, obviously, but eating them for months at a time will. And then in addition to the additives and preservatives, a lot of Just Add Water meals include lots of white grains like rice or pasta, and very little veggies or protein like meat and beans. So these refined grains are full of calories, but not much else. They're empty calories. So they're not going to sustain energy long term. Fourth, they're not going to help your mood much in an emergency situation. What you eat affects your mood. It really does. One of my very favorite quotes from Virginia Woolf said, "One cannot think well, love well, sleep well if one has not dined well." And I can't think of a time when it will be more important to think, love, and sleep well than following a natural disaster or during a period of financial insecurity. And both the inferior taste and the inferior nutrition are going to contribute to this mood. Last, they cost a lot. At first glance, many Just Add Water meals may seem to be a very inexpensive option, but unfortunately, this is deceiving. A bucket may claim to have 30 meals for a family of 5 in it, but when you actually look at the calories or the serving size, each person is getting less and sometimes far less than 1,000 calories a day. And since you can't reasonably survive, at least not well, on so few calories for weeks or months, you may need to buy 2 buckets instead of 1 to give you a sufficient supply, and that's going to double your cost. In addition, some companies will claim 2,000 calories per day or similar, but a large portion of those calories is coming from sugar-filled drinks and not food. So you might get 1,200 to 1,300 calories from food and the rest from those sugary drinks. So in addition, if you choose to supplement those white grains with fruit, veggies, and protein that you have to buy separately, that's going to increase your cost. So I've found that when I calculate cost per calories for actual food, Just Add Water meals are almost always the most expensive option. So in summary, Just Add Water meals are a good option if you're paralyzed by the effort and time required by the other 3 options we'll discuss today. If you do choose to store a long-term supply of Just Add Water meals, here are some tips to making it work for you. Taste many options before you fully invest in any. Set up a schedule to eat one of your Just Add Water meals every month or so that you are rotating through them. Try to find options with less additives and preservatives in them. Look for options that include a good balance of grains, fruit and veggies, and protein, or purchase those things on the side. And then be careful of the cost. Make sure that as you're comparing costs, you're doing so per calorie and not just per serving, so that you can compare that fairly. All right. The next method for building a food storage is what I like to call the basic calorie method. And this is what many people initially think of when they think of food storage. The basic calorie method includes basic life-sustaining foods such as whole grains, beans, oils, sugar, baking supplies, and powdered milk. When you're using this method to plan your food storage, you calculate what you need based on the number of calories you want to eat each day. And there are lots of calculators out there. Many of them use pounds to calculate needs, but I personally don't suggest this as it's honestly not very accurate. Many people wonder or ask how many calories per day they should store, and that's actually a common question I got that people emailed in before this webinar. And it's a great question, but honestly not one I can answer directly because it depends on you and your situation and what your goals are. I can, however, guide you in making a decision. So consider these 3 questions. First, how many calories per day do you eat right now? Second, how much exercise or other physically exerting tasks do you do each week? And third, in the case of if the disasters that you're most likely to face in your area were to actually happen, would you need to have more, or would you have more or less physically exerting tasks than you do right now? Many people will choose to store a very minimal amount of calories per day, and in my opinion, this just isn't wise because it's very likely that you'll need more, not less energy in a disaster situation. So I personally suggest that you store at least the number of calories you currently consume, if not more. So that gives you a starting point. Obviously, your own personal budget is going to come into play there, but that's my ultimate recommendation, is to kind of start with the number of calories you're eating right now. All right, there are 3 main benefits to using the basic calorie method to plan and then build your family's food storage. First, it's extremely cost effective. These foods are the least expensive calories that you're going to get. This is how I started back when we had very little money, but I wanted to be able to do something. Second, it's relatively easy to plan. While it's not quite as simple as the Just Add Water meals, it won't take days or even hours to plan what you need. The calculator, one of the calculators I'll be giving you at the end of this class, will do all the math for you, and in just a matter of minutes, you can have a shopping list ready for what you need to purchase. Last, this method offers very quick peace of mind. Most families can afford both the time and money to get at least a 2 to 4 week supply of basic foods in their homes. And this can bring valuable peace of mind. Some of the other methods require more time or more money, but with the basic calorie method, peace of mind can be found quickly. There are a few additional things to think about when considering the basic calorie method, and here are 6. First, there is a learning curve to cooking with these foods. Most people don't regularly use things like wheat and powdered milk in their everyday cooking. And some people don't bake or cook much from scratch at all, so they don't use things like sugar, baking soda, and dry beans. That's not true for everyone, but if that is true for you, there will be a learning curve as you begin to use these basic foods. Now, some of you might think like I did years ago, oh, well, I'll get them now and I'll just learn to use them eventually. Well, I highly suggest you learn to use them now before you're forced to use them. While it will require an investment of your time, it's not as difficult as it might seem at first, and it'll be much better to invest that time now than in the middle of a disaster. If you store these foods but don't learn how to use them, you're going to significantly increase your stress level during emergency when stress is already high. Having to learn to use wheat when the internet's down and you didn't realize that you needed a wheat grinder to turn it into flour might just put you over the edge. So learn to use them now. Second, basic food can be difficult to rotate. If you fit into the category of those who don't cook from scratch, I am stumbling over my words because I talk too fast. Everybody tells me that. I need to slow down. Sorry. Just don't want to keep you on here forever. All right. If you don't cook from scratch and you don't want to, you're going to find it difficult to rotate through these basic foods. And even if you're disciplined enough to learn how to use them, if you don't have or make the time to then do so regularly, they're just going to sit on your shelf and not be used unless you're forced to use them. And again, this is a waste of money. You may end up tossing out thousands of dollars of food. Third, eating only basic foods can cause food fatigue. Like I mentioned earlier, what you eat affects your mood. So when cooked by someone who knows how to use them, most basic foods can be really tasty. But even if they're tasty, the lack of variety can cause food fatigue. These foods can become boring, and that can affect your mood. Again, you'll want to be at the top of your game during an emergency or job loss. So this is something to at least think about when you're considering this method. Fourth, basic foods can cause digestive issues. While foods in this category are healthy, there's a catch. If you're not used to eating things like whole grains and beans, but then start doing so because you're forced to, you'll get sick and you'll have digestive issues. These issues are going to sap your energy just when you need it more. And in a true emergency situation, if you don't have access to quality medical care, they can be dangerous, especially for the elderly or young children. However, if you learn to cook these foods and then do so regularly in your everyday cooking, this isn't going to be an issue for your family, but it's something to know about. Fifth, basic foods are missing certain nutrients. While none of the foods found in the basic food storage plan are unhealthy, they do lack nutrients that are found in fruits and vegetables. You can get some of these nutrients by sprouting your grains and beans, but not all of them. And again, that's an extra effort to learn how to sprout your grains and beans. Last, it's difficult to make full meals with just basic foods. This method simply calls for storing enough calories to sustain life, but that doesn't automatically mean you'll be able to make dinner out of the calories you have stored. This would be an extreme example, but if you just got 2,000 calories worth of flour, what are you going to make out of it? So it can be difficult to make sure you have, enough of each type of ingredient to make full meals. Now, you can rotate through the ingredients you store by making bread or serving a side of beans for dinner, but it's going to be difficult to create a full meal from just basic ingredients. So, as a review, the basic calorie method is a good option for those on a tight budget who like to cook from scratch. And if you choose to go with this method, here are some tips to make it work. Learn to use the foods you store if you don't already know how. Make certain you have a grain mill so that you can turn your grains into flour. Cook from scratch at least weekly to rotate through your food storage and make sure your digestive systems are used to whole grains and beans. Store your family's favorite spices and herbs in addition to what's recommended in the calculator to help avoid food fatigue, so you can create some extra flavor there. learn to sprout grains and beans, and consider gardening or storing fruits and vegetables at some point in the future as your finances allow. All right, what I call the calorie plus method is similar to the basic calorie method, but it is more robust. While this method still uses whole grains, beans, powdered milk, and baking supplies as its base, it also includes fruits, vegetables, condiments, meats, and even cheese if you want it. What you need to store is still calculated based on calories. There are 4 main benefits to the calorie plus method. First, it's still relatively easy to plan. With the calorie plus method, you're still just planning food storage based on calories. So while there are more items to choose from in the calculator than there are for the basic calorie method, it's still a simple process and doesn't take a huge amount of effort, at least when you have a calculator that does it for you. The food you store will be well balanced and nutritious. With the calorie plus method, you're focused on balanced calories. You'll store foods from all the food groups, which means your food storage is better balanced and more nutritious overall. You won't experience food fatigue. This method allows for that wide variety of foods. You'll be able to make more exciting meals and won't have to worry so much about getting tired of the food that you've stored. In addition, creating meals is easier. Now, it's not quite as easy as the recipe method, which we'll talk about next, but creating meals from food storage built using the calorie plus method is far easier than just the calorie method because you have things from all the food groups. However, there are still a few drawbacks to this method that you should consider. Here are 4. First, there's a learning curve. Since the calorie plus method still uses all the things in the basic calorie method, you're going to have that similar concerns with the learning curve when it comes to learning to use those specific items. However, the fruits and veggies and meats that you store will likely have less of a learning curve. Second, rotation can still be difficult. Even though some of the food stored with this method are more familiar, oftentimes I've found people still store things they don't use regularly. For example, I don't like canned green beans or most any canned fruit or vegetable, to be honest. But when I started adding produce to my food storage, that was the only way I knew how to get shelf-stable produce. So I stored canned green beans. But we rarely ate them because we didn't like them and we ended up wasting a lot of them. So you might experience the same problem if you don't know where to get quality food. In addition, this method still requires more from scratch cooking. So if you don't have or make the time to create meals with your food storage, it's just going to sit on your shelf until you're forced to use it and you may end up wasting it. Third, you may still experience some digestive issues because this method is still quite grain heavy. If you aren't used to eating those grains and the beans on a regular basis. But again, this can be solved by regularly using the foods that you're storing. Last, it can be difficult to create full meals. Now, I know I've listed this as both a pro and a con under this method. First, I want to emphasize that if you choose to store food based on calories, that doing so using the calorie plus method will make creating meals far easier than doing so with just the basic calorie method. And that's why I've listed it as a pro. But anytime you store food based on calories, you may still end up with some awkward meals. This is because even if you have a balanced number of total veggies, grains, and dairy, you might have too much or not enough of one specific ingredient. For example, you may end up with a lot of extra spaghetti noodles and not enough tomato sauce. So that's something to think about. In summary, the calorie plus method is a good option for those who want a well-balanced food storage, don't need the least expensive option, and aren't ready to spend the time required for the last method we'll discuss today. If you choose to go with the calorie plus method, be sure that you learn how to use the food you store if you don't already know how. Make certain you have a grain mill so you can turn your grains into flour, and cook from scratch at least weekly so that you're both rotating through your food storage and making sure your digestive systems are used to eating grains and beans. All right, moving on to the last method. I call this method the recipe method, and the idea behind it is that the food you store should be based on recipes. In other words, you should store the ingredients you need to make specific recipes instead of just basing your food storage on calories. This means you're much more specific and organized. So the first step is to gather recipes your family likes to eat. Then you need to convert them into shelf-stable ingredients. Calculate how much of each ingredient you should store. Now, this isn't a problem, or this isn't possible, excuse me, with all recipes. For example, there's no full steak or chicken breast available in shelf-stable format. But with the shelf-stable foods that are available today, it can happen for most recipes. I'd say 60 to 70% of your recipes can be converted to shelf-stable format. Now, I'll provide you with food storage conversion charts at the end of today's class to help you kind of convert your recipes over. There are 5 main benefits to using the recipe method to plan and build your food storage. First, your food will be easy to use. When and if you have to use your food storage, this method is going to be the easiest to quickly switch to. There's not much of a learning curve to making recipes your family already enjoys. Second, your food storage will be well balanced and nutritious. Obviously, some of this depends on how balanced your family's recipes are in the first place. But at the very least, basing your food storage on recipes you're already eating means your food storage will have the same level of nutrition that your current diet does. Third, you won't experience food fatigue. When you store food based on recipes, you get to decide how much variety to include. And no matter what you choose, they're recipes your family already likes and enjoys. You can store comfort foods that will keep your family healthy, mentally, and happy. And that will allow you to have a clearer head for making smart decisions in an emergency. Rotation is easier, which means you'll waste less. By storing ingredients for recipes your family already uses, you make rotation easier. And instead of trying to feed your family foods they aren't used to and maybe don't like, you're feeding them things that they already enjoy. You'll naturally rotate through your food without much effort. In addition, there are some extra benefits. Sometimes people think that the only reason to have food storage is so they can use it after a natural disaster or during a long-term job loss or maybe because of some other similarly huge circumstance. Now, while it'd be very beneficial in such circumstances, it's quite possible that you'll never face one. So by storing food your family regularly uses in the recipes they like, you're both preparing for a possible emergency and giving yourself that peace of mind, but you're also going to benefit your family in more everyday ways. For example, having food you regularly use to cook normal family meals stored in your home is going to decrease the time you spend planning meals, making grocery lists, and shopping at the grocery store. Or what about a week when you're sick or overly busy and you just cannot find time to get to the grocery store? You can pull out your food storage and avoid the cost and poor nutrition of fast food and still feed your family food they like. Or what about a week with a really bad snowstorm? Power's still on and you could drive to go do your grocery store shopping, but you'd really just rather stay home. Well, you can pull out your food storage and keep yourself warm and safe. Or how about the night when you find out your friend or neighbor just experienced a loss or personal tragedy, but it's just hours before dinner? Pull out your food storage and whip up a quick meal to show that you care. While having any food storage can help with these things, having food storage you regularly use will make these things even easier. Now, if you regularly cook with foods in the basic method, then all these things apply to you. I'm talking to people for whom there's going to be a learning curve with that way. All right, there are only 2 real downsides to the recipe method, but they can both be very hard to overcome. First, it's time-consuming to plan. Gathering recipes, converting them to shelf-stable format can all be very time-consuming, overwhelming, and to be honest, it's just plain hard. Cost can also be higher. This is likely a more expensive option for most families, as it's not typically going to be whole grain and bean heavy, unless that's what you eat regularly. But quality shelf-stable fruits, vegetables, meats, and cheeses are more expensive per calorie than basic grains and beans. So in summary, the recipe method is a good option for those who want a highly customized, easy-to-use food storage that they know their family will enjoy eating and are willing to invest time in planning that food storage and putting the money into building it. So if you choose to go with the recipe method, here are some tips to making it work for you. First, commit to investing a significant amount of time. Even with the calculator I'm going to give you, you'll still have to invest some time. Pick 3 to 5 breakfast, lunch, and dinner recipes. Then convert those recipes to shelf-stable ingredients and try making them at least once with those shelf-stable ingredients. That's the time-consuming part. Once you use the calculator, I'll provide you with in a bit to calculate how much you need of each ingredient. That will be much quicker than it would be without the calculator. Then plan and build just 1 month at a time if you need to for financial reasons, but want to use this method. Okay, so now you know and have an idea of what the pros and cons are of those 4 methods. I'd like to share with you what I've done as I've built a food storage for our family. However, I don't want you to just do what I did. What we've done may not be right for your family. The reason I'm sharing this about myself is because I get that seeing how someone else has put this into action can be a helpful starting point, even if you don't end up choosing to do things the same way. So when I first started with food storage, we were very poor law school students and we didn't have any extra money. So for this reason, and the fact that I didn't know much about all the options out there for food storage, I started with the basic calorie plan. I purchased enough calories of wheat, rice, beans, and powdered milk, macaroni, dehydrated apples, carrots, and onions, oats, and sugar to last my husband and I for 1 month. Our twin boys were still breastfeeding at this point. In addition, I bought a very inexpensive hand grain mill, and I learned to make homemade bread. Storing that food and learning the little I did brought incredible peace of mind. I loved knowing that we had something, anything stowed away. It would keep us alive if needed. But man alive, I am so glad I didn't have to use that food exclusively. It would have been so overwhelming. I don't have any idea what kind of meals I would have made back then. Over time, I kind of switched to the Calorie Plus plan. I didn't actually calculate out the calories, but I did slowly add more fruits and vegetables and meats to our storage. I didn't have the space for a garden or the money to invest in canning equipment, or quite honestly, the energy to learn. I had 3 children aged 2 and under at the time. So I bought grocery store cans. Now, I didn't love the texture or how they worked in my recipes, but I honestly didn't realize there were other options. Still, having those cans brought an increased peace of mind. It wasn't food we hated, wasn't food we didn't know how to use, and I convinced myself I'd get around to eating it eventually. We'd have it for dinner more often, but unfortunately, we didn't do that often enough. And I wasted a lot of food because we didn't rotate and use it. Eventually, I learned about and tasted freeze-dried foods. I was amazed at how close to fresh they tasted in my family's recipes. And at first, they seemed really expensive. But we were doing better financially at this point, and I realized that with freeze-dried foods, I could base my food storage off of recipes my family already knew and loved. And as I began to do so, I realized that that sticker shock price wasn't as scary as it first seemed, because I was wasting a lot less food. As I used these in our regular recipes, I didn't have to buy a whole thing of celery and have half of it go bad before I could get to it. I used my celery from my can, and it didn't go bad. So our grocery budget actually didn't increase. My goal was to create a full plan based on recipes, but I was a little bit overzealous, and that ended up being a lot harder than I thought. So I started by simply adding food I knew I used regularly in recipes. For 2 years, I just kept randomly adding foods like freeze-dried chicken, green beans, corn, strawberries, potatoes, cheese, more things. As my food storage grew, I loved knowing there were many recipes I could make with my food storage, but I still wasn't sure how much of each ingredient I needed for a 3-month or 6-month or 12-month supply. It wasn't until 2014 that I sat down and actually calculated that out. I started by choosing recipes we loved. Then I tested each recipe by making it 2 to 3 times with shelf-stable ingredients, and I would tweak it each time, just a little bit each time, just to get it right. You'll find a lot of those recipes on my website. Once I had every recipe converted, I created a calculator, the one that I'm going to share with you today, so that I could figure out exactly how much of each ingredient I needed for the recipes I wanted to store. As I've thought about the process I went through, I want to offer a few encouraging thoughts. First, some food is better than no food. Don't let fear of choosing the wrong method keep you from storing food for your family. Simply make the best decision you can with the information you have, but make a decision and act. Store something. The peace of mind is priceless. Second, it's okay to start simple, even if that's not where you eventually want to end up. It's okay to start with the basic calorie method. I did, and I stayed there for a few years. Or start with the recipe method, but pick just a few simple recipes. You don't have to go all out like I did over the last like I have over the last couple of years. I didn't start out that way. I do suggest keeping your long-term food storage goals in mind so that you don't buy things that won't fit into that at all. But starting simple allows for immediate peace of mind and a quick win that will motivate you to keep moving forward. Third, mistakes are okay. Honestly, I wish I'd never stored so much canned grocery foods, but hey, I learned. Our family had food insurance during that time, and it ended up benefiting a local food bank. It's okay that I made the quote unquote wrong choice for our family. It was better than not making any choice at all. Last, the method you choose will likely evolve and change over time. Maybe right now you don't have time to learn basic foods, but in 5 years when all your kids are in school, you will. Or maybe right now you're living on student loans and don't have extra income for freeze-dried foods, but in 10 years, when you're well into your career, you will be able to afford them. Your tastes will also likely change over time, which means you may change the recipes you store food for. So be open to these things and keep them in mind as you choose your method now and move forward with it. So remember my story and those 4 encouraging tips. You can plan and build a food storage for your family. You can gain peace of mind and become more self-reliant. Except for my slide says peach of mind, and I don't exactly know what that is. So I'll have to go in and edit that slide, but it should say gain peace of mind. All right, so as a review, just add water meals are a good option if you're paralyzed by the effort and time required by the other 3 options. The basic calorie method is good for those on a tight budget who like to cook from scratch. Calorie Plus method is a good option for those who want a well-balanced food storage but don't want to spend the time required for the recipe method. And last, the recipe method is a good option for those who want a very customized, easy-to-use food storage and are willing to invest the time and money. So many people emailed me before the class asking about inventory systems and once I have food, how do I keep track of it? I won't go into an enormous amount of detail here in interest of time, but there are 2 main inventory systems that I recommend when people ask me that question. The first is the Preparedness Planner, and this was created by a woman named Jennifer who has, since I met her, has now become a great friend. But when I first found out about her planner, I didn't know her. And she offers extensive support in using this paper inventory system. And the second one is called Prep and Pantry. And it is an app that you put on your smartphone, and then you can scan foods as you take them in and out of your storage. And then you can keep that list of what you need with you at all times. It also allows you to put things in different areas of your home so you know what you've stored where. If you don't have a big storage room and you store some of it under your daughter's bed and some of it in your husband's closet and some of it in the garage, you can keep track of where everything is. So those are the 2 inventory systems I recommend, and you'll find more information about those on the resources page at the end of this class. Now, there are 3 different food storage calculators I've created to help you calculate your family's food storage needs once you've chosen a method. The first is for the basic calorie method, the second is for the Calorie Plus method, and the third is for the recipe method. Each calculator can be adjusted in various ways to fit your family's current needs. And you may use one calculator now and a different one in a few years. You might start with a 1-month supply and then eventually work up to a 12-month supply. These calculators will help you do that. I typically charge $10 for each calculator, but as a thank you for attending this class today, I'd like to give all 3 of them to you for free. Oh, below this video, actually below the chat, you'll find a link that says Food Storage Class Free Resources. Now, if you click on that link now, you're not quite going to be able to access the page yet. I'll give you the password to the page in just a few minutes. But once you have access, you'll find the 3 calculators there, along with videos showing you how to use each one, a summary sheet of today's lesson, multiple food storage conversion charts, and then links to those 2 inventory systems I mentioned. So I sincerely hope that all of these tools help you to build a food storage for your family. If you appreciate, I forgot to put that up. I didn't press the button. There you go. There's all the things that should have been on the screen when I was talking. Okay, we'll move on. All right, if you appreciate what I've taught you here today and are ready to start getting your busy family fully ready for emergencies, I have even more for you. I know that you took the time to show up today because you're smart. And you care about your family. You want to be able to confidently care for them, even when things don't quite go as planned. And you don't want to rely on others who may or may not be reliable to do this, to take care of your family. Maybe you even have a New Year's resolution to get your family prepared. But you're here in this class because you haven't quite fully found a way to prepare your family yet. You're busy. You don't have time for a bunch of Googling about emergency preparedness, and trying to fit preparedness into your life might feel like pushing a round peg into a square hole. It just doesn't work, or hasn't worked for you so far. And I've been there. I've been where you are. I know how impractical it feels to wade through all the staggering amount of conflicting information that's available out there in Google land. But gratefully, I'm no longer there. While there's always room to develop and grow, I now feel confident that I can care for my family regardless of what life might throw at us. And so do those I've coached over the last few years. Here's what one young mother, Stephanie, had to say after working with me. She said, like many people who are beginning to realize the necessity of being prepared, I was completely overwhelmed. So much so I was practically paralyzed. Misty really helped me to break down all the different components of emergency preparedness and made it extremely easy to be focused and accomplish my goals. My family is now well on its way to being prepared for anything that may come our way. So today I've given you enough information for you to calculate a solid food storage plan for your family. But I'd like to do more, and I want to give you a choice today. You can choose to take the info I've given you and run with it on your own. This class is packed full of helpful info and tools that I sincerely believe will help you make progress with your food storage. But you can also choose to continue to work with me and have my full support as you progress in all areas of emergency preparedness, including water storage and purification, types of food storage, evacuation, first aid, power outages, and more. I'd like to invite you to enroll in my comprehensive emergency preparedness e-course called Simply Prepared. This 12-step online learning system supports smart moms in preparing their busy families for emergencies without all that never-ending Googling and frustrating research. This is the system I wish I'd had when I started thinking about emergency preparedness 10 years ago. Each week for 12 weeks, you'll go through one pre-recorded module anytime it's convenient for you. Each module is available in video, downloadable audio, and printable formats. Now you can go through them weekly or as they were released to you, or you can work on just one a month at your own pace. You can access them while the kids are at school or at midnight when everything's quiet. Each of the 12 modules includes 1 to 3 simple, clear, and easy to implement lessons that walk you through the process of preparing your family for emergencies in a logical and step-by-step manner. At the end of Module 0, Build Your Preparedness Foundation, you'll have the perspective and momentum you need to be successful and the money and time to truly get prepared. The eye-opening worksheets in Module 1, Setting Goals and Priorities, will help you avoid the biggest mistake you can make when working to prepare your families for emergencies. You'll know exactly what you need and don't need to prepare for at the end of this module. In Module 2, Storage Space and Organization, you'll experience or you'll explore some new perspectives for making the most out of the storage space you have, and you'll also learn how and where to properly store and rotate your supplies so they don't go to waste. Module 3, you will create a practical and surefire emergency plan for your family and learn some methods for teaching this plan to young children without scaring or overwhelming them. Module 4 will debunk some myths about how to calculate how much water your family needs and decide help you decide what containers you want to store your water in. In Module 5, you'll learn proven ways to both find and properly clean water sources. In Module 6, which is called Choose Your Food Storage, we'll take an in-depth look at the 4 food storage calculation methods that you've learned about today. Basically, you've had that lesson. But we'll also discuss the 3 different types of shelf-stable food so you can successfully choose quality food that will be useful to your family when you need it. Module 7 will unlock access to the 3 calculators that you'll get today, as well as it will guide you as you set short and long-term goals so that you can start building your food storage one at a time. or one step at a time. All the food in the world isn't going to do me much good if you don't know how to use it. So in Module 8, I'll help you save time, money, and avoid waste, and even decrease your daily mealtime stress by showing you how to regularly cook with the food you're storing, whether that's freeze-dried foods or basic calorie foods. In addition to food and water, there are many other preparedness supplies that are important in a well-rounded emergency preparedness plan. So in Module 9, you'll find out which first aid, communication, hygiene, sanitation, and other supplies are useful, practical, and reliable, so that you know which ones you need and which ones you don't. In addition to food and water, there are many other supplies, I should have grabbed a water before I started this. Power outages are a disaster that everyone will probably face at one time or another, and long-term outages can be dangerous. So in Module 10, we'll make sure you have the skills and the tools to cook and stay warm or cool if it's summertime during a power outage. And finally, in Module 11, you'll create an evacuation plan that guarantees you'll grab what is most important to your family first, even if you're panicking. Now, in addition to the 12 modules, the Simply Prepared e-course includes worksheets to help you more fully understand what you're learning, and help you apply what you're learning to your family and situation so that the time you invest isn't wasted on the wrong thing. You'll also get a challenge for each lesson to help you apply what you've learned, since that's really the ultimate goal. You'll find printable summaries, comparisons, and lists that will help you recall what you've learned over time so that even a year or 2 or 3 from now, you can go back to those lessons and improve your preparation. You'll also find charts that summarize what you learn and compare pros and cons of various options so that you can make informed decisions. Plus, outside of the actual course content, you'll have access to 3 additional bonuses. The first is an online community where you can collaborate with people just like you every day. This community is a great place to get support from other smart moms who are working to get their families prepared. Plus, I'll be in there every day and I'll answer any question you post there within 24 business hours. You'll also have access to 3 live question and answer sessions with me where we can discuss the course content in more detail. Last, there are what I'm calling expert extras, and these are 5 either printables or videos from various experts, preparedness experts, that discuss certain topics in more depth. There are also 2 completion bonuses, so everyone who enrolls in the course will receive their own preparedness priority roadmap, which will help you continue to invest your time and money wisely even once all the course modules are complete. And anyone who completes all of the worksheets in the course by August 31st will also receive a $50 credit to Thrive Life to purchase food storage of their choice. So to enroll in the Simply Prepared e-course, you can choose 3 payments of $97, or you can save $44 by paying $249 in full at the time of enrollment. Many students similar to you have completed the Simply Prepared e-course. This isn't the first time that I've opened enrollment for it. Rob, a former U.S. Marine and firefighter, who's also a paramedic, said, "Preparedness has been my thing for more than 20 years. Misty has by far the most complete and well thought out preparedness course of anything I've seen. It will be the best money you spend on preparedness." And Jerica, young mother, says, "Misty's e-course covers everything in one stop. It's easy, contagious, and addictive. Her course got us all the tools and resources we needed to be prepared and cut out the extensive info search. As I followed her program, it felt like a weight was lifted." Now, honestly, I hate promotions that force you to make a decision now. Things like, buy before the webinar ends and you'll get this bonus. I don't think that's fair to those who need to discuss their decisions with their spouse. However, I do get that it can be very easy to procrastinate. So while you don't have to do anything right this minute, I do have a fast action bonus for you. Anyone who enrolls in the next 5 days will also get a copy of my 72-hour kit ebook, which is called Your Own 72-Hour Kit Plan, which sells for $16.99 on my website. A copy of my food storage recipe book, Your Shelf-Stable Pantry. These are the recipes that I tested 2 or 3 or even 4 times. And grab-and-go binder pages that can be filled out electronically by typing instead of by hand, which makes them a lot easier to save to your computer and edit as your information changes. Now, I know you're busy, So you'll have lifetime access to the materials in this course and the Facebook community that's built for it. This means that while the modules are released one at a time, they're never taken away from you once they've been released. So if you need to, you can work through the course on your own pace and go back to it years later. Plus, with downloadable content, you can work on the course material anytime, day or night, in the car, the tub, in front of your computer. Finally, I want you to be confident and comfortable in your investment in the Simply Prepared e-course. So I offer a 100% money back guarantee. If for any reason you find the course doesn't meet your needs, you have 3 weeks or 21 days from the start date of the course to request a full refund from me. If you'd like to read more about the Simply Prepared e-course, you can find detailed information page by clicking on the Learn More About the Simply Prepared e-course button that's down below the chat. All right, now let's get on to the free resources I promised you. Thank you for staying till the end. I am truly grateful for your time today. I'm excited to make these gifts available to you for free. You can access the free resources by clicking on the Food Storage Class Free Resources link below and entering the password food storage. On that page, you'll be able to download the calculators and watch tutorial videos to help you use them. You'll also find a printable summary of today's lesson, food storage conversion charts, and links to the 2 inventory systems I mentioned. Okay, now let's get your questions. Feel free to ask anything about planning and food storage or about the Simply Prepared e-course. I'll start with the questions that already been asked in the chat, but feel free to continue adding questions as I'm talking. I'll stay as long as I need to get all your questions answered. So let me pull out of my slides here so you can see the chat and you can see me. Stop sharing slides. All right, there I am. Okay, let's go all the way to the bottom here and see what questions we have. Okay, what company has the best tasting freeze-dried food? I've tried several and they're really awful and I would hate to survive on them. This is from Jennifer. Okay, so my opinion is that nobody has a complete monopoly on this. But if I had to pick one company, I would pick Thrive Life. I've done many taste tests. Sorry, I guess I should look at you. I'm talking and not the chat. I've done a lot of taste tests, blind taste tests with people and compare different food storage items. And almost always, actually always Thrive has won. But there are times when one specific ingredient, like strawberries, there wasn't a huge difference. One change that Thrive has made recently is that they now freeze dry all their own food, which means they can get that from more local farmers and that they have a lot more control over the quality of the food that they freeze dry. Other food storage companies, they're going to get their freeze dried food from basically the same suppliers. There might be 3 people or 5 people in the world who supply freeze dried sausage. And so they have to choose one of those 5. But Thrive has a much wider market of who they can choose from. And so their quality, especially over the last year, tends to be a little bit higher. There's only 1 or 2 of their foods that I've ever tried. The tiny itty bitty little beef dices I don't love, but almost everything from them I've been happy with. All right, now I am not sure I've caught all the questions here. I'm trying to, looks like it's not showing every question that was in here. So I might have to open a different screen, but looks like a lot of them are here. Okay, Clarissa, thank you for helping people see the video since I couldn't see the chat while all that was going on. And Vanessa, thank you. Okay, how do you estimate how much freeze-dried food to store based on volumes of fresh ingredients like vegetables from recipes? Like if a recipe calls for 2 cups of fresh carrots, how many cups of freeze-dried is that before rehydration? Okay, so there is a difference between dehydrated food and freeze-dried food. When you dehydrate something, it shrinks. So a dehydrated carrot is going to be a lot smaller than a fresh carrot. But freeze-dried food does not change shape or size when it's freeze-dried. Or if it does, it's very, very slight. So the conversion is very simple. If a recipe calls for 2 cups, you put in 2, or fresh, you put in 2 cups of freeze-dried. So that's a very easy conversion there. All right, let's see. I have done that 3 times with no luck. I'm so sorry for those of you who haven't been able to see this. Hopefully you got in. And if you didn't, I will send out a replay. Okay, I only see a green screen. Oh, I'm so sorry. Okay. When making food storage meals in a jar, does an oxygen absorber need to be added, and will it be sufficient to preserve freshness for an extended period of time? Answer to this question is a little bit tricky because I'm not in your kitchen and I don't know how careful you are. So where food storage shelf lives from a company who is certified by the FDA can be guaranteed, shelf lives for what you do at home can't necessarily be guaranteed. That being said, yes, if you were to put an oxygen absorber in a can and seal it and let it suck up all the oxygen, it is going to increase the shelf life for that product. So if you're going to make a freeze-dried jar in a meal and you don't add an oxygen absorber, I'd probably eat it within 5 or 6 months, 7 months. Most of those foods have a year shelf life separately, but when you put them together, different reactions can happen. But if you put an oxygen absorber in there, they should last far longer than that. All right. Let's see. Can cooking from scratch include using a crock pot or pressure cooker? Absolutely, Jenny. One thing to think about is if you are at risk for power outages. So whatever disaster or thing that you might be preparing for, are you at risk for a power outage? If you are, then you're not going to be able to use your crock pot or your pressure cooker unless you have some sort of backup power. So that's something to consider there. Is do you know how to cook those foods without them in case you don't have power? But I use a pressure cooker and a crock pot all of the time. All right. I have a lot of food allergies. How can I make sure I get enough food? Food allergies can be tough, and it really does depend on exactly what allergies you have. One company, and again, I've been impressed with them, but one company that is very, very careful about food allergies is Thrive Life. And you can read their labels and see exactly what happens. All of their certified foods, like certified gluten-free stuff and dairy stuff, is packaged in a completely separate facility, so that you can create foods and recipes based on what you can eat. And if you do have a lot of allergies, the recipe method is something to consider, because then you're simply taking the foods that you eat now and converting them into a shelf-stable format so that you can eat them when you might not have access to the grocery store. All right. Oh, that wasn't from Jenny. I'm sorry. That was from an anonymous person. Jenny said, I've never been good at counting calories. How do I figure out how much I and my 4 kids need? Jenny, the calculator I have today will help. Most people, most adults eat between 1,500 on the really low end to 2,500 calories a day. Males are usually slightly on the higher end. Most healthy females are somewhere in the middle. So that gives you kind of a guess to kind of start with if you don't know how many calories you're currently eating. And for kids, it's usually somewhere between 1,200 to 1,800, depending on how old your kids are. Once they're teenagers, consider them adults. Boys sometimes eat more than girls, but not always. I have a girl who can eat a lot. So that should give you at least a starting point. The concern I have is when people start building a food storage based on 800 calories a day or 1,200 calories a day for a full-grown adult. That concerns me. So try to stay in the 1,200 to 1,800 range for your kids, and probably even more 1,800 to 2,500 for adults. Hope that helps. Okay, it slid up on me here, so. Oh no, a bunch of the questions kind of disappeared. Okay, let's see. If I don't get to your question because the chat is only showing like the last 20, I will email you. Okay, let's see. When is it best to use moisture absorber packets? So thank you for asking the difference between these. There's oxygen absorbers and there's moisture absorbers. And sometimes people think they're the same thing, but they're not. One absorbs oxygen, one absorbs water. So I use moisture absorbers after I've opened a can of freeze-dried food. There's moisture in the air, more if you're somewhere where it's humid, obviously, but anywhere there is. And when you open that can and scoop something out and put the lid back on, moisture is going to get in there and it's going to start to make your food a little bit softer, chewy. Doesn't mean it's gone bad. It's just a different texture. So I'll throw a moisture absorber in there and that will help with that problem. All right, in storing water, do you fill your containers and then add the water clearing drops when you're ready to drink the water? Right now I have some water bricks filled with water and I added a couple tablespoons of bleach to it. I think you said you prefer the drops over that method. I do prefer the drops just because they taste better. With drops or bleach, you can do it both ways. You can do it before or after. Bleach has a shorter shelf life, so if you put bleach in before, you're going to need to do it every 6 months, add it. The drops and things that you add, those are going to last longer, sometimes up to 5 years before you need to add more. But you can also simply add it when you drink it. So you could just leave it, pull your water out, pour your bleach, as long as it's not expired, in, or the drops, and then drink it then. It may affect the taste a little more that way, but both methods work. Does Thrive ever offer deals on becoming a distributor? Very rarely, Robin. They don't. The packages they offer for distributors are already below cost, so they don't typically offer deals. Sometimes they'll offer free shipping, but that's about as much as they'll do. Buffered throughout. Do you have a written transcript? Only heard part of it. I'm sorry, Mary. Some of that is probably the your internet. I do have a written transcript. If you want to shoot me an email, if anybody else needs that, misty@yourownhomestore.com. It's not exact, as I kind of glance at my notes and don't exactly read everything, but it would give you a good idea. I'm happy to send you that. The link for the free charts isn't working. I typed it in, but it doesn't go anywhere. Let me check that really quick here. Open. Okay, I'll share my screen here. Make sure, tell me if this is not what you're seeing. Okay, so if I go over here, once you enter the password, if you're not seeing this, email and let me know. It should work. I've tested it multiple times and had a few other people test it for me as well. So I don't think that that's going to be a common issue. If it is for some reason, please email me. Okay, somebody else said the password food storage does not work for me, but you typed it with a space and lowercase. So the password is food storage, all one word, and all uppercase. I can both water and pressure bath canning. I would like to do this as part of my food storage. Obviously, this is not long-term food storage, maybe medium-term. Oh, where did it go? Okay. I have also wanted to work with Mylar bags. Do you have any input on this? And is that something that you have used or can recommend good sources? Yes, I have a great source for learning about canning. I actually have a free webinar you can watch on my website. So this was anonymous. So shoot me an email and I will get you a link to the free webinar. And then there's also a full e-course that I recommend for both water bath and pressure canning. Her course is amazing. In addition, as far as Mylar bags, my best resource there is Angela from Food Storage and Survival. Has a lot of information and even a couple of YouTube videos that really show you the difference of those types of things. And I believe I linked to that tutorial in my semi-recent blog post on oxygen absorbers. But you can email me for that info as well. Do you have any tips outside of using the recipe method for people who don't eat grains? Elizabeth, that depends on if you don't eat any grains or if you're just gluten-free. There are quite a few grains out there beyond grains that have gluten in them. But In addition, I think, well, to me, the question would be, what do you eat now? If you don't eat grains, what do you eat? And then you would need to find that item in a shelf-stable format to be able to, continue to eat like you already do. Beans are great. They're high calorie, very nutritious, and low cost. You could focus on those. You can turn them into powder. You can sprout them. There's a lot that you can do with beans too if you don't eat any grains at all. Okay, so a lot of people, seems like this is a common issue, is a lot of people are having problems with the password. It is one word, all caps, but I will go check it as soon as I'm done answering questions here and send out an email and make sure that it's actually working. It just worked for me, so I'm not sure, but I will double check it when I'm not right here on screen trying to answer people's questions and get back to you all via email. I have all your email addresses, so I'll just send out a group email to everybody. The password is, one more time, food storage, FOODSTORAGE, all caps. What brand of Just Add Water meals do you recommend? Does Thrive make them? Thrive does make them. Thrives are different in that they don't put a lot of additives and preservatives in them, meaning they have a shorter shelf life, 3 to 7 years. So if you'll have to rotate through Thrives more often. They taste okay. I personally have never tasted a Just Add Water meal that I've been like, man, this is amazing. It's so good. But I have some of Thrives. Those are the ones that I store in my car that I mentioned and up in my pantry. And I probably use them 6 or 7 times a year when I just need a really quick meal. Or my husband, if he's sick and I'm gone and he wants chicken noodle soup, he'll throw in one of those Just Add Water meals, chicken noodle soups, or they'll take them backpacking. They taste okay. They're not bad, but I don't love them. So recommendations for a grain meal. The one I stored initially, let me look it up really fast. Oh, and I'm still screen sharing. That's really funny. Okay. Yeah, it's been a long time since I had it. But when I was a poor law school student, I stored the grain mill. It's a hand-operated grain mill by Victorio. And I guess I can screen share and show it to you here again on Amazon. So I used this one right here, and it's $50. But it took hours, really long time to get enough flour for bread. So if you can afford a different one, I would highly recommend Nutri-Mill, has good mills. And Wonder Mill. Wonder Mill is the one that I carry on my website. They have both a hand mill and an electric mill. And those are the two that I use now and absolutely love. Their hand mill is one of the least expensive quality hand mills on the market. You can hook it up to your bike. You can hook it up to a hand drill. So, and it creates flour even by hand really, really fast. So those are my recommendations for grain mills. All caps for password. Yay, looked like Becky got in. Okay, that makes me happy. Somebody else still said the password for the class resources doesn't seem to be working. Okay. Clarissa says, I have an issue. I really want to have a mixture of different foods. Some add water, some basic, recipe plus calorie. Do you recommend starting with just one type? Want to work with grains, but I do like some of the canned food and some freeze-dried. Clarissa, if you want to email me later, I can get back to you with a more detailed answer. But that's really what I did kind of in the middle of my food storage plan, right? I started out with just these basics just because that's all I could afford. And then I just kind of started expanding out, and I didn't really calculate the calories exactly. I just added foods, and it felt good to have those foods. And eventually I wanted to be more organized, and I got to that point where I really wanted to just base it on recipes, but that doesn't work for everybody. One of my good friends who has a very popular preparedness website, she doesn't use the recipe method. She just wants to use, she does calculate it based on calories, and she has lots of fruits and vegetables, but she's not super exact about it. You don't have to be. So if you kind of like to have a mixture of everything, then have a mixture of everything. I cook from scratch regularly. So I have a lot of wheat. I still have a lot of beans because I use those things regularly in my everyday cooking. So recipe method doesn't mean you eliminate all those things. It just means you base it on whatever you cook with and eat every day. I must dash. I have the same questions regarding canning, water bath medium. Thanks for a great seminar. Okay, Kelly, I will try to get back to you about the canning. I know you said you had to dash, so if you have questions, you can get that. Can I get the quote you gave during Just Add Water meals? Yes, Emily, I can send that out with the follow-up email today. Emily, moisture absorbers, I've always just got them on Amazon. You might be able to find them other places, but I'm kind of an Amazon addict, and they always seem to be very reasonably priced there. The original site is locked at review, but allows comments. I'm watching you live on the YouTube link. Resources for password works fine. Password works fine. Connie asked, it is working but won't on my iPad. Is it an Excel? So yes, as noted on the page where the calculators are, there's a little note down there that says that they are Excel files, but that you can also open them and use them in Google Docs if you don't have Excel. Okay, David wants an email with notes and a transcript. Thank you for the effort you put into this presentation. You're so welcome. Glad the password worked for you, Robin. I'm glad that this was informative. Now, like I said, it started only showing the last few chats here. So I may have missed some comments. Let me go over to where the chat box actually is, the website where it's hosted, and make sure I didn't miss any questions. I know some of you might have left, but you'll watch the replay later, and I want to make sure I get all your questions answered. Okay, I'm going to sign in here, and I will check and see if there's any other questions. And hopefully I'll change that for my webinar tomorrow. Okay. You're welcome, Connie. You're welcome, Emily. Sorry, it's taking me a minute to get logged in here. Okay, let's see, the hand mill. Thank you, David. Yes, the hand mill was Victoria and Wonder Mill. So the less expensive hand mill is the Victoria. I find that one on Amazon, and then the Wonder Mill, you can find those on my website. Hey, Vanessa. Okay. You're welcome. Password worked. You're welcome. So many people saying thank you. You're all so kind. All right, I'm going to go back here and see. Here's the history of all shouts that I finally found all the stuff here. Okay, I think I got those questions. Got that question. Going back to the early questions when everybody was seeing a green screen, I'm sorry. Okay, so here's the last couple questions that were at the very beginning. How do I know I have enough? Overcoming hoarder versus preparedness mindset, adjusting for sales on an item I have plenty of. I want to buy a cheap price, but I don't need it. My answer to that question is to keep a smart inventory. Honestly, the app, if you have a smartphone, makes that so much easier. You just scan, use your app phone, or your smartphone, to scan food as you put it into your pantry and then scan it as it comes back out. Even if my kids grab something out of the pantry or the, our storage area and bring it into my pantry, I scan it as it goes in there so I know that it's no longer in the storage room. That's helpful. So, and then you can keep, when you have the app, it makes it very easy to keep that inventory list with you. So you're at the grocery store, you see a sale on rice and you look and you think, oh, but I don't need rice. That would be a waste of money, and you don't buy it. So that would be my answer there, is to just have a really smart inventory system. And Clarissa, some cheaper meals to do regular wise. I'm assuming you mean not basic. Once again, it just goes to what do you eat regularly? What meals do you already cook and eat that don't have fresh produce in them, that don't have meat in them? Those types of things. There's also, what's it called? Crystal Godfrey, Cooking with Food Storage. She has some great recipes in her book, which you can find on Amazon, that work a lot better with basic meals. Okay, I think that's all the questions. If you had a question that I did not get to, please, please, please email me and I will get back to you. Thank you so much for attending today. Remember that those 5 bonuses for enrolling in the e-course will expire in 5 days. So talk about it with your spouse if you need to. Shoot me some questions if you have questions about the course. And I'm excited. Thanks for coming again today. Bye-bye.